So you've spun up a Kubernetes cluster, a few clicks, maybe a single command, and boom, you're a hero. That's the easy part. That's day zero. But the real job, the part that actually determines if you succeed or fail, that all starts on day two. That's where you go from just running Kubernetes to truly owning a platform.
And this quote, yeah, this just says it all, doesn't it? This is the heart of the matter. Day two isn't some academic exercise. It's about avoiding this exact nightmare scenario. It's about making absolutely sure that one tiny, innocent mistake doesn't snowball into a catastrophic outage that wakes up the entire company. This is the reality we're here to talk about and to fix.
So in this explainer, we are diving straight into the messy, painful core of these day two struggles. We're talking about those chaotic Slack channels blowing up with alerts, budgets that just seem to spiral out of control, and of course, that dreaded 3 a.m. page. We are going to build a playbook, a concrete strategy to conquer these exact problems.
All right, our first battle is against complexity. And more specifically, it's against the constant, draining, soul-crushing war of managing the actual nodes, the virtual machines underpinning your cluster. It is a source of endless toil. And you know what? It's a battle that most of us really shouldn't even be fighting anymore.
Look, the choice really boils down to this. On one side, you have GKE Standard. And that means the burden is on you. You are responsible for patching nodes, for capacity planning, for playing this endless, frustrating game of bin-packing Tetris, trying to cram your pods onto VMs efficiently. Or there's Autopilot, where you just hand that entire class of work over to Google's SREs. You literally stop thinking about nodes and get to focus only on your pods because the SLA, the promise, is now in your workload, not just the underlying machine.
So here it is, the modern rule of thumb for 2026. You should default to Autopilot for, let's say, 80% of your stuff. We're talking all your standard APIs, your web front ends, your microservices. You only, and I mean only, reach for standard when you have a very specific, well-articulated reason. Like, I need this custom machine type for an ML job, or I need this exact GPU. If you can't name that reason out loud, you should be on Autopilot. It's that simple.
And I know what you're thinking. This is the question I get every single time. It's the biggest pushback. And it's a totally fair question, but honestly, it's usually based on a bit of a misunderstanding of how you're actually spending money.
Right. The whole cost thing comes down to one word: waste. In Standard, you pay for the entire virtual machine. You're paying for all the empty, unused space you can't perfectly fill. It's like buying a whole pizza, even if you only eat 6 slices. In Autopilot, you only pay for the CPU and memory your pods actually request. You pay by the slice. So unless your manual bin packing is absolutely perfect, and let's be real, it never is, Autopilot often ends up being cheaper because you stop paying for all that built-in waste. Now, speaking of cost, this leads us perfectly into our second big battle: visibility. And this isn't just a tech problem, not at all. This is a business problem. Because when your VP of Finance walks over and asks, "Hey, who's spending all our money on the cloud?" you need a much better answer than just a shrug.
This is what most leaders see. They see this one giant, scary, and completely unhelpful number for compute engine. On a shared Kubernetes cluster, this tells you nothing. Absolutely nothing. You have no idea if this is the data science team running huge experiments, or the checkout service, or maybe just a dev environment that someone forgot to turn off. It's a total black box. Okay, now here's the crucial piece of information, the secret handshake, if you will. The solution to this black box exists. It's built right in. It's called GKE Cost Allocation. But for reasons I will never understand, it is not turned on by default. You have to go in and proactively enable it to get that financial clarity. And the fix? Well, it's shockingly simple. Step 1, you go into your cluster settings and you literally check a box to enable GKE Cost Allocation. Easy. But step 2, this is the part that is completely non-negotiable. You have to enforce a policy that every single pod, every single one that gets deployed to your cluster has CPU and memory requests set. Without that data, the system is flying blind.
And this right here is the catch. This is the gotcha that can trip you up. Just enabling the feature does nothing. It's useless if your development teams aren't providing that metadata on their workloads. So this means you have to create your first real platform policy. No resource requests, no deployment. End of story.
And this is what you get. This is the after state. That big, useless number transforms into a report you can actually use. You can now walk into a meeting and say, with data, The data science namespace is consuming 60% of our cluster budget. You can finally have intelligent, data-driven conversations about cost, about value, about optimization. You've turned a technical black box into a business intelligence tool.
So we've cut down on the toil and we've gotten visibility into our costs. Our final battle is against fragility. We need to make our cluster resilient to the single biggest cause of outages in the world, which is us. We're talking about simple, honest, well-intentioned human error.
Let me just be as direct as I can here. If you are still running kubectl apply commands against your production cluster from your laptop, you have to stop. It is 2026. That way of working is unpredictable, it's not auditable, and it is incredibly fragile. It's just not how modern, reliable platforms are built anymore.
The modern alternative is GitOps, and the idea is actually really simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Your Git repository, that becomes the single source of truth for everything. The YAML files in that repo are the blueprint for what your cluster should look like. Then you have a little agent inside the cluster, and its only job, 24/7, is to make sure the live state of the cluster perfectly matches the blueprint in Git.
And this is where the magic happens. Let me just walk you through this timeline. It's 10:01 p.m. Someone on the team, with the best intentions, accidentally deletes a critical service. In the old world, you are seconds away from pagers going off. But with a GitOps tool like Argo CD, it immediately sees this. It detects a drift. By 10:03, its self-healing feature automatically kicks in and reverts that unauthorized change. The service is back online, and the entire crisis is over before your monitoring system even knew there was a problem.
So, what happens when we tie all three of these solutions together? What do we really get? What you get is a fundamental shift in your mindset. You are no longer just a cluster maintainer who is reactively putting out fires all day. You graduate. You become a true platform owner who is proactively enabling the entire business to move faster and, more importantly, safer. So here it is. This is your playbook. The key takeaways from our whole conversation. First, default to autopilot. Just do it. Free your team from the endless toil of node management. Second, go enable cost allocation right now and enforce resource requests to get a handle on your budget. And finally, lock the whole thing down with GitOps. Make your infrastructure as reliable, auditable, and versioned as your application code.
So I'll just leave you with this one question. After seeing all of these strategies for crushing toil, for gaining visibility, and for building a truly resilient system, what's the one manual task in your daily workflow right now that you are ready to automate away forever?